Hello and welcome to your post-daily news show for Thursday, June the 23rd. I am John Pollock alongside the notorious WAI. Hello, Way.
I'm here. What's going on, John?
Not much. It is a Thursday. It's hot out. Have you been outside today?
Not yet today. No.
Oh,
Bit of a
yeah.
heat wave, eh?
Oh, it's just killer. Too hot to go outside.
Th- th- So what are you going to do instead? Are you going to avoid it?
Yes. Yeah. I can't. I have to go out this afternoon.
I got
So
my AC fixed yesterday in my car, so that was
that's a big upgrade.
definitely
It
key.
was
Yeah.
broken, or you got AC installed?
It's like one of those things where sometimes I can't tell if it's broken because sometimes it just takes a while to heat up, and maybe my own gauge of temperature is kind of off sometimes. So I don't know. I'm like, is this cold or is it not? Took it in. Turns out there's some sort of leak. Ended up having to pay $200. Like every little thing is at least blank $100 attached to it. So
It
whatever.
is one regret I have not being more efficient when it comes to my car is that when you take it in, it's like, I suspect there could be a problem here. Rarely
Yeah.
do I ever get met with, you know what? Everything's great. There's
Yeah.
nothing that we can do for you here. But
Yeah.
car's in great working order. That never happens.
No, never, ever, ever. No, me too. I wish I had better car knowledge, and uh, maybe that's another podcast.
Well, we are on the road to Forbidden Door on Sunday with the latest angles and matches being set up on Wednesday night. I guess the key news coming out of Wednesday's show is that Kazuchika Okada will be part of the show in a four-way match for the IWGP title with Jay White defending against Okada, Hangman Page, and Adam Cole. Bryan Danielson is off the show, but he will designate a replacement to take on Zack Sabre Jr. And this replacement, this mystery member, will be part of the show on Sunday and then in Blood and Guts next Wednesday. And we've got a pretty full card, and it seems that there is a lot of dissension among people just in terms of the buildup for this, what issues were outside of the control of these companies, what was within their control as we have got here. I think you have most of the major names that are available, but several of which are either hurt or not booked on the show.
Yeah, yeah. Again, there have been a plague of injuries to going on in professional wrestling these days, and AEW has been maybe the company that has suffered some of those biggest effects. Being a part of this show that I think at one point, anytime you have this sort of co-promotional battle between two companies, I think you want all of your top stars available to take on their top stars, and unfortunately missing Brian, missing Punk, missing Kenny, um, Jeff Hardy, like you name it, right? Like it's taken a bit of a hit to the card overall, but I do feel like some of the criticism is not just about the injuries, but about maybe some of the matchmaking, and also whether ultimately politics might have played a part in preventing some of these singles dream matches that maybe were, maybe the fans expected heading into the show.
Would you like to see after this show on Sunday? Do you see these sides being separate for another year? Do you kind of mix them in here and there throughout the year on both sides? Like, what do you want to see out of this relationship between the two companies over, coming out of this show?
I mean, I certainly see the relationship continuing, if not being better than what it has been up until this point. You know, I suspect with the way this show has sold, regardless of I think how the result coming out of what fan response has been to the show, even coming out of it, they'll still do it next year. I think there's
Oh,
too
that
much
that
of
I
a
don't doubt. I'm just saying, do you save
yeah.
this for once a year to bring them all together, or do you see more of this throughout the year? Like maybe you send a team over for the tag league at the end of the year. You have
Mhm.
back and forth throughout the year, or just keep it to once a year so it's all special.
As far as another Forbidden Door taking place before next June, for instance, maybe not. I mean, I really see the template with their ROH relationship as what this is. This is for AEW and New Japan going forward. Maybe continued crossovers throughout the year with select stars, but maybe your one big show at the end of the year. But I certainly wouldn't discount somebody like Okada coming in, for a bit of a run next time he wants to go to In and Out, or more deeper storylines whenever Brian is healthy, whenever Mox is healthy, of course, going over there.
As we stand today, with still Rampage and the Countdown show to air, are you going higher or lower than 115,000 buys for this show on Sunday?
So just for context, what are some of the more recent buy rates that we've had for AEW shows?
Well, the last show, we don't have a final number for. Let me just pull up so we have the exact figures here for everyone, courtesy of Brandon Thurston over at WrestleNomics. So Double or Nothing, early estimate 145 to 165. Revolution, early estimate of 160 to 170. And Full Gear last November, 145. So I'm pegging it at 115. So sizably below kind of your baseline. Is that too low of a projection for this show?
I'm going to say I think it does higher than that. Ultimately, AEW pay-per-views are still so infrequent that whenever they occur, I think the wrestling fan base will be gathered together to watch it. I don't see people saying that they're going to miss this one simply because they're not necessarily getting like the dream match that they really wanted. Like, we could talk about maybe some dissatisfaction, but ultimately this is still a really good card with incredible talent. And I think for AEW and New Japan, the first,
you don't have Punk on this card that those last three all had, and that certainly represents a big jump in AEW's numbers over the last year.
It's true, but I feel like we are going to see a bit of a baseline for AEW pay-per-view interest, but not to mention the fact that this is just a baseline AEW pay-per-view. It's a special concept show. Look at the response to it once tickets were announced for it. So I think even regardless of like whatever the card is, and it's a good looking card. I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on it at all. It's just
I think it looks. I think we're gonna get a tremendous show on Sunday. Oh, yeah. The question will be the appeal going in. And as I said on Wednesday, I do think it's kind of understated, just the concept itself, that even if you're not following the television, interpromotional, it tends to grab people's interest. I think this clears 115. I'm pretty confident of that. Maybe that's too low of a number. Maybe people in the chat room, they can throw in their estimates for the buys on Sunday.
Where else are you going to see the Bullet Club take on the dudes with attitudes?
Look at that.
Consisting of Sting, Darby Allin, Hiromu Takahashi, and the biggest dude with the biggest attitude, Shingo Takagi himself.
I love this match of just like the randomness of it all, of Sting and Hiromu. It's almost like Sting with like, here's his crazy kid Darby, and Darby's crazy friend from Japan, Hiromu, coming over, and then Shingo in the mix of all of this. I mean, I think this will be this is the kind of match I do want to see, a match like this on Sunday where it's just all these weird parts put together for a wild 8-man.
Yeah. Shingo, we know, has been studying all elite wrestling. He's one of the color commentators, at least on World, right? So I'm sure he'll have plenty of attitude for the dude.
We still don't know what the commentary team will consist of on Sunday.
Right. Has there been no word about no, we know, like, aren't Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton going to be there? Didn't they say that? That they'll be traveling to Forbidden Door?
They might have.
Yeah,
I believe Kevin Kelly had stayed, so I wasn't sure about Chris or not. But I mean, is everyone going to be in this booth? Are we going to have a very crowded booth?
We might have a couple booths. We might have a switch out. They might be doing some musical chairs.
Maybe Fight will offer you both commentary channels. You can get Kevin Kelly and Charlton on one, Jim Ross, Excalibur, and Tony on the other. Japanese commentary on a third. You can actually buy this on New Japan World if you are in Japan.
You could buy it on World? What do you mean? Pay separately?
Yeah, pay it separately as a pay-per-view.
Interesting.
If you are in Japan.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, that's the latest on Forbidden Door. We will have a post-show Sunday night immediately after the show here on the channel. So hit subscribe. You will get the alert when we are going live, but it'll be minutes after the pay-per-view concludes, and we will see what the closing moment is on the pay-per-view.
It'll probably be these two looking at each other, which they probably are still doing right now.
This is how the pay-per-view should start.
Yeah. Moxley and Tanahashi in the ring,
days.
still looking at one another. They should have just stayed in the ring for Rampage. The wrestling matches could be going around them, and for the whole hour, should be staring at each other.
So on a more serious note, regarding Jon Moxley, he did an interview with his wife Renee on her podcast, going through his whole decision to go to treatment last year. This coincided with a feature being released by a friend of the show, Mark Ramundi, at ESPN, and kind of just going into like everything that went into that decision. And we have a clip here of him speaking with Renee on the sessions that was released today.
I felt really defeated for like the first day, just like really defeated. But then I got on a little payphone thing with you, and you were like, I was like, what's the deal? You said, yeah, I talked to Tony and like Mega and everything's cool. They just want to know how you want to broach the subject, because like I was advertised for a match. So they're like, do you want to tell people, or
it's not like you were going to be off for like a weekend. You were going to be off obviously for like,
yeah, or do you want to just say like it was up to me? It was like we can and I was like, I mean, I guess, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The next day I talked to you on a little phone, and they're like, yeah, they just like, everybody knows. And I was like, oh,
yeah, there's like
okay.
some freedom with that almost, right?
Everybody knows I'm in rehab now. And like, I don't have a phone, so like, I'm not like, I don't know what the reaction is or anything, but I knew it was out there. Like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I just went, oh, fuck, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Because this thing I've been hiding, and trying to hide from people for so long. Mm-hmm. The once it's like, oh, everybody knows. And fuck them, I don't care.
So that was Jon Moxley describing it. Now, in the feature that Mark Ramundi wrote, and he spoke with Moxley, with Renee, with Eddie Kingston, who was apparently very helpful in all of this, and Tony Khan, and noted that before going into rehab, he was in a routine of waking up feeling terrible, chugging water, hitting the sauna, and downing countless aspirin to feel somewhat normal, which became common. Moxley said when he arrived for matches or segments at AEW, he had to shake the brain fog caused by his hangovers and mentally prepare himself to get ready to perform in character. And when he finally went into treatment, it was Renee that reached out, contacting AEW, and Tony Khan said that he was surprised when Paquette told him what was going on, but he was clear that AEW was behind Moxley and their family. Khan had to make major changes to his creative plans, but he said it was a small price to pay to get someone he considers a friend the help that they need. And it just sounded like it wasn't like one incident, some bottoming out period. It was just an accumulation of this dependency on alcohol and the idea of quitting cold turkey. He was very concerned about like the withdrawal effects, and that it could even cause a seizure or potentially other issues, and a fear of that happening to him on television or on a plane. And it was just this vicious cycle that he was in, that he was dependent on alcohol on a daily basis, and then making this call to seek treatment, and was there for 3 months. So I think that this is a very worthwhile story to look at, and someone that, you know, ultimately was very transparent with what he was going through, and doing now a little bit of media as well, discussing it.
You know, he's somebody who, I don't even know if he thinks of himself as any sort of role model, or if he's doing it with any sort of that intent. He seems more to me like somebody who just doesn't really like the bullshit, and if he's asked a question, he will answer it. And but the effect of it is, you know, there are a lot of people that look up to this person, and him being as forthright about his own issues as he has been, continues to be, is very educational for a lot of people. You know, for a lot of people who don't exactly know, who think that maybe, you know, alcohol addiction is simply like somebody who likes to drink, you know, or at least like just who just likes to party, for instance. He's making it, he made it sound far more difficult than what something like that is, and the reality that it must be for a lot of people who grow a chemical dependence on this drug and can't function without it, and how difficult it is to try to get off of it but not be able to. So I'm still making my way through the interview itself, but sounded very serious, especially for somebody, you know, having such a physically demanding job with so much travel.
Yeah, I mean, he really, you know, emphasized how much of a trying year it was. Like with this, the fact that he has a 1-year-old that was born over the last year, moving, and that was all happening at the time that this went down, and releasing his book, which was to come out days after he checked himself in. And he also spoke about the Forbidden Door on Sunday, and, you know, believing that he was one of the one of the last links between these companies, as he actually signed a 6-month deal with New Japan before he signed with AEW. That was to take him through the Tokyo Dome in 2020 with New Japan. And he believed that, once Harold May left, that probably helped things in terms of the relationship between the two companies. And that this match with Tanahashi means a whole lot to him because he watched Tanahashi's match with Minoru Suzuki, this was from King of Pro Wrestling in 2012, just over and over again when he was down in FCW, and said it's more important about names and the distinction, such as Tanahashi being the ace. That's what means more than the, quote, 200 fucking belts we've got between these two companies.
Nice little commentary there, I suppose. No, that to me is honestly the draw. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about an interim championship. We all ultimately know is, just essentially a fancy word for number one contender. But this card is honestly saved by, Moxley having had this build up for this Tanahashi match and then being able to at least execute something with the depth of storytelling attached to it.
And he doesn't outright state it, but he was, questioning if at all he was even going to be on this card until the Punk injury. So
interesting.
It's hard to imagine like maybe he's put into that tag match with Kingston and such, but he was like questioning like, where am I going to fit on this card? And him having, a big part in AEW and New Japan having some kind of connection over these last couple of years when it's been very rife with issues.
With the 6-man being essentially like, Eddie Kingston, Shota Umino, Wheeler Yuta, like these are Jon Moxley's friends, and I would have to imagine maybe it
very well could have been an 8-man, or he's in the spot of it could have been Moxley, Kingston, and Umino. That would have made sense, but definitely you would have expected him somewhere on this, but now he's in the featured match on the show on Sunday night. So you can check out more of that on the sessions with Renee Paquette and Mark Ramundi's piece up at ESPN. On Wednesday, we noted that Paul Levesque was down at the Performance Center and spoke with people there, and in delivering his speech, indicated that he is back. In what capacity, that is unknown at this point, but I think what we can take from this is that his power has definitely increased of where it was previously. I mean, he had pretty much been hands-off with NXT since his cardiac event of last year, Shawn Michaels taking on a lot of those duties. And I guess you can look at this in many ways. Wade, do you see this as Paul Levesque is being put into his corner in NXT? Is this a means to see if this goes well, there may be something else for him in a WWE where a John Laurinaitis' role might need a permanent replacement? Like, there's a million questions that come with this of what this ultimately means for Levesque, but I would say that his importance feels like it has increased.
Yeah, and it's coming obviously at a time where I think that that room for that leader who's been there for a long time is sorely needed in the company right now. There's been considerable, conflict and uncertainty as it regards to the power structure up top, and Triple H, I think, is somebody that everybody in the Performance Center seems to really like as a presence, and I'm sure he's been missed. But
he's coming back to a totally different looking NXT, and I think for anyone that is looking at this as like, okay, we can just snap our fingers, it's like you can't just change what NXT is. It's like you have the people that you're working with, and like what significant changes would you expect?
I mean, it seems, but things will probably change as quickly as they changed to 2.0, like, which really felt like an overnight change, didn't it? When it went from Black and Gold to 2.0. Ultimately, I think he's going to be a leader in control of whatever is there. Like, we're executing Vince's new philosophy of what he wants 2.0 to be. And it's a system for these next in line college level athletes to develop their skills. I don't think that's going to be that much different from what it is. Maybe Hunter will just kind of oversee everything day to day to facilitate that transition. I don't think philosophically you're going to see a very different show from what we're currently seeing with NXT 2.0, for instance.
I don't either. I think that you're coming in and like this is that past Black and Gold era. Like, it's the performers are most of them are no longer there. Like, this is the crew you have to work with, and this is the philosophy that was installed. And maybe we'll get some more insight next Tuesday. NXT is back live. We'll see if Levesque is there on Tuesday and what these changes are. He also sort of alluded to being down there for a meeting over something exciting that's coming up, but he was not going to share what that was. So that was another question coming out of this.
Something exciting.
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to think.
I mean, you never tease people with, hey, there's something that's not that exciting that's coming up, but I can't tell you about it.
I got a bunch of great names for all of you. Huh?
Yeah, that's it.
We're gonna auto name generator. Yes.
We're gonna get ready, folks. We're gonna have some more X's in the middle names and such. Get ready. NXT on Tuesday, they had some very good news with 637,000 viewers, 7th among cable originals, and a 0.18 in the 18 to 49 demo, up 47% this week, their highest demo number since Halloween Havoc last October. They more than doubled their female audience in 18 to 49 and 12 to 34. Their 18 to 34 figure overall was up a huge amount, like over like 67% they were up from last week. Not a giant increase among 50 plus. It was only up 10%. And that's why the overall viewership wasn't a crazy increase from a few weeks ago. But all of their younger demos were up sizably. And like, what conclusion do you draw from this? This is the third show in a row for WWE that has done very strong numbers with SmackDown, Raw, and NXT. And I think you can only come to a conclusion that all of this attention on Vince McMahon has somehow added to an interest in WWE programming. And this was a taped episode. It's like you can't even lean on the idea of maybe Vince McMahon's going to show up on NXT or something. Like, there was obvious interest, and it extended down to NXT on Tuesday.
Well, again, it just kind of further tells you that tape versus live doesn't make a bit of difference at all when it comes to at least a property like NXT's. The only constant, has been, I suppose, the continued presence of the WWE brand in daily conversations, I suppose, outside of professional wrestling circles. That is the only reasonable explanation.
Or Tony D'Angelo going for the North American title has, struck a chord.
I mean, or Apollo Crews like chasing down bullies in the alley. It could be that too. That's also been very much in the mainstream consciousness. I'm shocked, honestly. Like I think Friday was no surprise whatsoever. The fact that Monday also did well, maybe a bit more surprising. I definitely
against the Stanley Cup final as well. Like,
it
had that handicap on Monday.
I definitely felt like Tuesday is where like it was going to end. Because I don't know if the person who would have seen the CNN piece about Vince McMahon somehow maybe getting curious enough to watch WWE, I don't know if they would even know about NXT. I don't even know if they would know that when it would be on. So, could it be as simple as going through the guide and seeing the letters WWE NXT and thinking, oh, WWE's on, maybe we'll get an update on that Vince McMahon stuff. Is it that? Like, and would that person stick around to watch this entire show with some relevance to look for some relevance for this Vince McMahon thing? That's really hard for me to believe, but I don't know what the explanation is.
Yeah, I would say it would be the second most surprising number of the last week. I thought Rampage being down so much would be the most surprising, but watching NXT on Tuesday night, I mean, this to me was the complete opposite of a Dynamite viewing experience. Like, I was not watching live. I watched later in the evening, so I'm not even watching it through commercials. And this felt like the longest show of just match after match after match after match. And I did not think this was going to be a strong performing NXT, and completely wrong. They did 43,000 in Canada, which is around what they do each week, just outside of the top 10 in sports programming. And NXT will be back to a live format next Tuesday. And we're out of playoff season. Once there will be no more conflicts with the Stanley Cup final, not over yet, but winding down, and won't be going against Raw or AEW next week. Before we get to our interview today, Impact coming up tonight. It is their show following Slammiversary, and they will have Josh Alexander taking on Diener, Chelsea Green against Mia Yim And this was taped the day after the Queen of the Mountain match, where Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo took their crazy ladder spill to the floor through the tables. And before the impact, we'll see Black Taurus taking on Andrew Everett. So 3 matches announced beginning at 7:30 Eastern for their YouTube show. Oh, we've got this as well. Yeah. So there you go, Shark Boy in action as well.
Yeah, Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice taking on Bhupinder Gujar and Shark Boy. So yeah,
Will the ratings momentum, where will Impact fall? We've seen AEW numbers hit over the last week. WWE soaring. Where does Impact fall?
Well, I mean, I know you're kind of speaking in jest, but a very interesting question will be the AEW Dynamite number that's out later today, isn't it? And whether or not it benefits from maybe any of this discussion about WWE or pro wrestling in general, and whether or not we consider it as any sort of bounce back from Rampage, if you want to draw any correlation to the two. But yeah, we'll find that out later today, and we'll be speaking about it tomorrow.
All right. Final thing, we're going to sign off now, but I did get a chance this week as well at the Collision Conference here in Toronto. Way is going to come to this next year, I think.
It sounds really interesting. I mean, not just for the professional wrestling.
I think you would have actually enjoyed it with all the different panels.
Did you see the Zach Brown McLaren presentation?
Okay, I was going to go to it, but that was on Wednesday, and I actually put in a request to. No, actually, Zach Brown I don't think was available for interviews. I was trying.
Wow.
I was going to try and interview him just for the sake of it, but
before we even get to the interview though, we have a couple super chats to get to.
Oh, let's do those
from our live chatters here at youtube.com/post wrestling. Hey, get us up to 11,000 subscribers. We are so close, everybody. So if you're watching this, if you're enjoying all of these, please hit like and please subscribe. Get us to 11K. Hopefully by the end of the week. That'd be great. We go to Plethora, who sends $5 in a super chat. He says, is there anything that can be done to help the Rampage ratings? Or was last week the bottom of the barrel?
I don't know if you're panicking over one number. It's certainly something that I would be paying attention to, especially if it continues. I mean, yes, in comparison to Dynamite, I think you can certainly see the distinction between the two, but I would not classify Rampage as like this struggling property. It's the reality of where they are on a Friday night. It is clearly AEW's secondary program. Now, if this continues, I think there would be greater concern over Rampage, but I don't tend to, overly celebrate a giant number, nor do you look at one terrible number as the sky is falling. But it does make it important for this week's number, which is a rather, regular looking Rampage lineup. There's nothing that feels reactionary from last week's number.
Agreed. Yeah. We wait to see what trends may arise, what sort of, averages may arise. But yeah, I don't necessarily think Tony Khan was responding to last week's number by booking a stacked show this week. It's very much what feels like a standard edition of AEW Rampage. And if there's going to be any added interest, it's the fact that maybe more people might be talking about the product heading into the pay-per-view, heading into Forbidden Door. If you're a diehard New Japan fan, maybe this would be the show where you tune in to see Jeff Cobb. What are the New Japan?
Jeff Cobb and Cash Wheeler and Andrade and Phoenix are kind of your big things on Friday.
So we shall see. Thank you for the super chat there, Plethora. We got a Jake from the Windy City, sends $5 in. Thank you for the support, Jake. He says, could AEW and New Japan do another joint show this year? Not a pay-per-view, but maybe a special edition of Dynamite. Or do you prefer they keep that just once a year?
I don't think you can answer until we see how well the show does on Sunday. If this is a gigantic success, then maybe you look at that as something you can do more than once. I think you do one big crossover pay-per-view per year, and then throughout the year, you could have a Will Ospreay come over for a big match on Dynamite, or you could have a Jon Moxley go over several times a year to New Japan when it works out. Talent exchanges, but then it's once a year we do the crossover brand versus brand pay-per-view.
Yeah, again, I think it'll be very much, our modern version of what the ROH relationship used to be for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And on that note, do we get a show over there in Japan? Do we get a version of Honor Rising, that is now Elite Rising, or whatever they want to call it?
Okay, we can work on a name. We can certainly workshop a name. But I would think that
returning the favor, so to speak.
AEW returning the favor.
That's it. be like GCW contractual obligation or whatever.
The settlement series, yes.
The settlement series.
Which has the best graphics for any wrestling event this year with like the legal notices. I think at a bare minimum you will see talent going back and forth. Throughout the year, but it's going to be determined. Like if this does a very disappointing number, it might there's something to glean from that as well. And AEW's view, if it's a very strong number of how many pay-per-views can we do per year, I think everyone agrees they could do more than 4, and this would at least probably introduce a 5th. Do you look at a 6th? Do you look at the ROH shows as part of that total on top of it? Like how specific of an audience are you drawing from ROH that is distinct from your AEW buyer? Or do you group them all together, that this is your audience that you are asking to buy multiple pay-per-views per year? All right. Thank you for the super chats, everyone. We're going to end off with my interview with Bellator featherweight champion Cris Cyborg, who will be a free agent this summer and is looking at what her next step is going to be, if it is going to be in mixed martial arts or elsewhere. So we got to chat with her about that and lots more at the Collision Conference earlier this week in Toronto. Here at Post Wrestling, it is John Pollock, joined by Bellator featherweight champion Cris Cyborg. Cris, welcome to Toronto, first of all.
Thank you. My pleasure.
What have you thought about just this conference today? There's 1 million people here, and what brought you up to the conference here and what you're going to be speaking about?
I always like to improve, getting better. Here is the Olympics for technology, collisions. It's amazing be here in Canada and be invited to speak. And I'm happy, to learn every day. I think it's in the future, learn a lot of technology, and it's good.
It seemed that at some point in your career, like you had become very multifaceted beyond just, the fighting aspect and growing the brand of Cris Cyborg. At what point was it your management that kind of got you onto that line of thinking? And how has that been in terms of balancing kind of the performance in the ring versus as well just getting different opportunities out there, because it's a very short shelf life for a fighter?
It's very important. Okay, you use go to fight MMA, it's one thing, but you have to use your platform for other things. And not just for now, but for my legacy, for the future. So I like to invest in my time to learn other things too, and then use the excuse that I'm a fighter, the champion. But I think you have to learn every day, and getting better at skills, everything.
Obviously, this summer, there's a lot of attention on you and what the next step is going to be in your career. Is this something that is exciting for you, or is it something that you're almost hoping just get through it and figure out what my plans are going to be after this summer?
I really enjoy my moments, doing a lot of appearances, doing a lot of things. And I'm very excited for the next chapter in my career. And it's nice to have this moment, you see the real value and then go different places too. And I'm excited. I'm happy to be this time.
Do you feel that there are a lot of suitors out there that want to be in the Cris Cyborg business?
Yes, and I'm very excited too. I would like to do one boxing fight. I believe we're getting there, and I'm excited. I think I always love to challenge myself, and if we do different things, I think it's help for my legacy too. And I'm excited to see where I'm going to be next for my next chapter.
How would you assess the landscape for fighters that are testing free agency and the abilities that they have? I mean, we have... I think it's a major story right now about fighters and increasing their value, including, rights. Fighter pay is such a big topic. So give me a sense of how it feels going into free agency and fighters going out there to find their worth. Is it a good time to be going into that market?
I think in the beginning, everybody threw a lot of rocks at me. I think I was the first fighter to get out and to see, it's really important you get out the comfort place for see what's the opportunity come for you. I think the first time I did, I test the free agent and see a lot of opportunities for me, the real value you have. If you don't get out, you're not going to know. So, and you see a lot of fighters like Jon Jones, like a lot of different fighters, and they really been saying this and they start to want to do this. So I may have a good position now. I think I have an amazing career, and I think it's nice to see the real value to you. And I always say all the fighters is really important. You can do that. You can see what the real value you are, and that's it.
A long time ago, Tito Ortiz was one of the first to really talk about fighter pay, and he went against the promotion and was largely painted as an enemy. And I think that has greatly changed. There are fans that are very pro-promotion, but I think that has shifted greatly. And I think that there are a lot of fans out there that are now seeing the fighter's perspective here, even though those two are somewhat at odds. Has that changed a lot? Do you receive backlash when you are talking about these topics?
I think it's very important you think about your future. Most fighters maybe don't think about it. It's very short. So you have to make the most money you can during your career. For you finish your career and you can do another thing, you work on other things. But I think you have to really know, you have to really know how much you can do. And if you don't get out of your comfort place, see other options you have, you're never gonna know. So I'm really happy I have this opportunity in my career, and I have it again. So, it's going to be good for the future, for my legacy, for the things I'm going to do in the future. And it opened the door and the eyes for other fighters too. The younger fighters in the future. I know our sports are going to grow more. After 15 years, 20 years, for sure the fighters are going to have getting paid now than the 20 years. So, but it's nice to do sports growing, and it opened the door for other fighters too.
With your eye on boxing at the moment, do you think that structure is better suited for the fighter versus mixed martial arts?
You have the elite acting in boxing, it's different little bit, different, the MMA world. So I believe it's a little bit better, about this, have some rules, but I think we're getting there. I think it's going to be change the sport during the years. But yes.
Do you see a time, maybe in the next 10 years or so, that it could be a situation where people want to see a fight with yourself and an Amanda Nunes or a Kayla Harrison, and you take the fight to the highest bidder rather than it being the promotion that dictates what fights are going to happen? Do you see that as a possibility in MMA, or do you see the system largely staying intact where it is the promotions that sign fighters to exclusive contracts?
The reality, I think the fighters have to open their eyes too. I think for the change the sport, have a lot of things to change. Maybe in 10 years, but maybe it's going to be more. But I think the reality, is the fighters make the event happen. So, but now it's a little bit opposite, like the event make the fights happen. But I believe like this: if the fighter want to see the biggest two guys fighting, and then the promoter want to do the event, I think it would like to be right to do. Like a lot of fights are gonna be happening if you have it this way.
It was a real eye-opener a few weeks ago when Tim Kennedy did an interview and he talked about the MMAAA that really didn't get off the ground, and stated that a lot of fighters were on board with what they wanted to do. But when it came to putting their name down and committing to it, there was still that fear of going against the promotion. And I think you should really be applauded for the fact that you were one of those voices that would speak up. And it seems that fighters are still at a point where privately they might want to see a lot of changes, but it's still a little scary when it comes to attaching your name to a movement like that.
Yes, the part of my legacy in the future, I just want to hold the title. I want to make difference in other girls in the sport. And to make it better sport for the another younger girls come. Like I fight for the division, they make 145 pounds. For sure, the girls not gonna pass through what I did in the beginning of my career. The beginning don't have a lot of girls fighting. Now I have a lot of girls. The ones I made is huge. I think I not just want to live the legacy. I hold the title, but to make the difference in the sport, it's getting better for the younger girls come. This is the legacy I want to be. Like to be the champion, the people's hearts, and they make the difference where I'm at. And that's it. I hope a lot of fighters step up and doing the same thing, and they change the sport for better.
Going back many, many years, professional wrestling is always something that you've kind of mentioned, whether it be WWE, there is now AEW. Tony Khan is here up at this Collision conference. I understood you guys got to meet up at some point today.
Yes, I went there to take a picture. Very cool.
Is professional wrestling something in your mind? Is it something that would be fun to do, or not something you're really looking at in the immediate future?
I did some training with Talara Rosa. I have some training, Rose. I think it's different sport, but like I said, I always love to challenge myself. For sure, if you train a little bit, it's going to be good for sure. And, like I say, okay, I want to do one boxing fight, it's different sport too. And I always like to challenge. I think if I have opportunity to show up, for sure, it's going to be ready.
What are you hoping Cris Cyborg's legacy is going to be? Because I think, as you just mentioned, I think it's going to be more than just arguably, and maybe there isn't the argument of the greatest female fighter, but it seems like you want a greater legacy than just what you're remembered for in terms of fights.
For my legacy, I want people to believe everything you can do. If you believe and you dedicate and the discipline every day, you're going to get it. And then I believe everything in the life, not just being fired. It's another sport or another job you have. If you do your best, for sure you're going to have success. You know, it's gonna be hard. Not gonna be easy. Nothing easy. But when it's get hard and you get something, it's worth it. You know, worth everything. And I want to continue doing my community work. I want to continue to be helping people around me, you know, changing the world around me. And because it's very responsible, people call you your world champion. The world champion say, Cris, you're world champion. It's a lot of responsibility, the world champion. So you have to change the environment around people and make the difference. Be the world champion in people's lives.
If you could wave your magic wand, where is your next fight going to take place? Will it be in an MMA ring? Will it be in a boxing ring? And who would you want to fight? Like, if everything is just in perfect alignment, what will your next fight be?
I would like one boxing fight. Yes, my next one. For the time I will have it to frame to wait for the MMA, I would like to do one box fight. This is going to be the one of my dream. And I've been praying, you know, if you got big God plans, for sure it's going to happen. And for sure I'm going to do my best for my legacy and for my fans.
How much preparation would you need for a boxing fight? Would you want a longer extended camp to prepare for that? Or do you think you could, could that happen this year?
You know, it can happen this year. I already been training, you know, been working, you know, for getting better for my next fight, for boxing. I already been staying for a little bit already. And yes.
All right. Well, Cris, thank you so much for this time. We wish you all the best going into these talks this summer. And I know everyone is looking forward to what Cris Cyborg's next move is going to be.
Okay. Thank you, guys.